You're here, maybe. Okay, thanks. Good boy, thank you. Get her up.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I jinxed us this morning by thinking we would finish our in-camera meeting early, and of course, you should never say that out loud. So we'll just give a moment or two for everybody to click on, and then we can begin. Okay, Ms. Foster, are you ready for us to jump in? I'll just wait and take your direction to make sure you've got the transition all set to go. All right, so thank you, everyone. Again, apologies for the delay. We'll call the meeting to order. I'm chairing the meeting in the absence of the chair of our committee and vice chair of our board, Vice Chair Toth. So we'll call the meeting to order at 10:09 a.m. Any disclosures of interest? All right, none noted. New business. Can I get a motion to add the anti-racism terms of reference and the committee terms of reference? Moved by Mayor Holder, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Great. All right. Minutes of our Public Governance Committee meeting. Any questions? If not, I'll take a motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by the Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Item 4. So during our in-camera meeting, as is typical now with our new structure, we as a committee covered a variety of items. We approved our minutes. We also reviewed and sent for approval to the board a number of legal matters, updates, as well as legal invoices. We discussed and approved or sent it to the board for approval, hold harmless agreements, which are legal and kept in camera for those purposes. Discussed other items that will likely come to the public agenda, and different aspects of financial work that we do and financial decisions that we make. We will bring the terms of reference for both advisory committees to our public agenda and new business today. So with that update, I will go to item 5, Protocol London Police Service Business Plan Timelines, and turn the floor over to Deputy Chief Betts.
Thanks, Chair, and through you to those joining us here. This is essentially just a letter as a follow-up to the board report we brought to you and to the board in September, in which we had proposed a delay or an extension, rather, of the current business plan. We provided some rationale to that, and We have included a copy of that board report here as attachment number 3 to this particular letter. We've also included a current protocol between the board and council. There is a requirement to have a protocol between the municipality and the board with regard to timelines for delivering the updated version of the business plan. And this letter is essentially to be sent to His Worship Mayor Ed Holder on behalf of the board, co-signed by the chief, requesting that the municipality enter into this new protocol with regard to the extension. I'd also point out that the extension includes a move towards a 4-year term for the business planning processes versus 3-year. This would, with the extension and the 4-year term, puts us into lockstep with the city budgeting process so that our 4-year plan more closely aligns with the, will align with the city's budgeting process and allows future plans to more closely dovetail with what City Council is approving in their budgets. This is also in keeping with the new Comprehensive Police Services Act that is expected to come online in January of 2022, if all goes well. Part of our reason for this delay is that, or this extension rather, is that the COVID consequences in relation to workload and engagement have been such that we have not been able to satisfy the requirements that we needed to in this business plan, and there is still much important work left to be done. So I've included a copy of this letter so that we can sign that on behalf of the board and the chief, submit it to the mayor, and we're requesting that the mayor then submit that and present that to City Council. Subject to any questions?
Thank you, Deputy Chief. So we did discuss this and approve it at the September meeting, as per my understanding. And this is just following up on that item. I'll turn it over to Mayor Holder. Had a question there?
Just clarifying, if it's coming from the board to me, I don't presume I have any conflict with respect to supporting this and then receiving it on behalf of, I might just ask you to clarify that, Chair. I don't think I do, but I want to be on the right side.
I believe that you're correct, that you'd be approving in your board role and receiving in your other role. I know in many hats we wear can be tricky, but thanks for the clarification.
We don't have to spend too much on postage then. All right.
Yeah. Yep, go ahead, Councillor Cassidy.
So it's a question I asked the first time around, and I still have it. So it's according to the ministry policing standards, it says, right in the top that the police service board prepare at least once every 3 years a business plan. So I understand that because of the pandemic, rules have been relaxed, changed. Will that be the case ongoing? Because it looks like we're making this a permanent change. We're going to mirror the City Council's 4-year budget process, which makes sense, and I think is really a great idea for streamlining and efficiency and all of that. But what do we have? Are we sure that the province is not going to go back and say, okay, now we want to go back to this every 3-year rule? And is that going to cause us trouble if that's what they do?
Go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, we are confident that we are in good standing here. We did our consultations with our zone advisor, who joins us here today, and we are confident that the way that the adequacy standard is written with regard to prepare at least every 3 years allows for us not necessarily to prepare a brand new business plan every 3 years, but we can continue with the current business plan as long as it continues to meet our needs. It has been reviewed and it continues to meet our needs. So from that perspective, we are okay for the purposes of the extension. Within the new Comprehensive Police Services Act, which has been passed but is not yet enforced due to the many regulations that have yet to be written, that 4-year term is written into that legislation that has been passed. So we will continue to be in good standing that way as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any further questions? With none, can I get a motion to?
Mis-
Yep, Deputy
Mr.
Chief.
Tilly had it. Mr. Tilly had his
I'm
hand up there.
sorry, Mr. Tilly. The screen is set up in a way that my eyes don't naturally go to, so my apologies.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Deputy Bett's comments in that whilst the ministry doesn't necessarily endorse a decision of the board in this kind of sense, I can certainly say I don't have any concerns with the decision that the board's made in this sense. And as the deputy has also said, the new act is on the ledger, it just isn't enforced yet. Now, if something were to change and that were not to happen, then yes, you may need to revisit it. But the 4-year term of the strategic plan review is built into that.
Thanks, Mr. Tilly. All right, if there's no further questions, can I get a motion to recommend? Moved by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by the Mayor. All in favor? Carried. All right. So for new business, we're just going to, as a committee, have a chance to go through the draft terms of reference for 2 new advisory committees of the board. These draft terms were shared with the public in the summer. One is related to mental health and addictions, and the other is related to anti-racism. There was a lot of great feedback from the public. The terms were amended with that feedback in mind. As a committee, our task is to take on the final review before sending to the board for approval, but also to discuss what we'd like to do or recommend to the board in terms of recruitment and next steps. So let's just talk through each committee. The Anti-Racism Advisory Panel is set up in a manner where the terms actually do outline proposed composition. The proposed composition is to include 1 member of the board and 4 members of the LPS to be determined by the chief. And then there's an additional 8 members. 6 are to be members of the community and 2 are to be subject matter experts. The board is to be selecting the 2 co-chairs, one of whom would be a LPSB member and one of whom would be a community member. The selection of the anti-racism representatives was supposed to be connected to an interim steering committee, including both representation from 3 members of the Police Services Board and 1 of the deputy chiefs. The Mental Health Advisory Panel does not have specific numbers on the terms as far as how many, but the idea in those terms was to include people with expertise, including policy advocacy, community-based service and service delivery, as well as individuals with lived experience, as well as members from the London Police Services, including Deputy Chief, Mental Health Liaison Officer, and others as appropriate. So how do we feel as a committee with these terms? I know that we've raised some questions just about benchmarks around compensation, which we'll research and get back to the board on. But in terms of other details, are there any comments or feedback? Mayor Holder.
Thanks very much, Chair. I was the one that brought up the question about compensation levels and the like. Beyond that, I'm exceptionally comfortable with the whole, the principles behind this and having a more regimented process to deal with these issues. They're critical. I think they are issues that we deal with in today's environment, and we have to be shown to be proactive and making, I think, responsible decisions that reflect our community. So with respect to all of this, I'm quite supportive.
Thank you. Anyone from LPS admin have any comments or feedback as we move this along? Yep, go ahead, Chief.
Just echo the mayor's comments. We're equally supportive, and we have identified members, including each of the deputies to sit on either of those committees. So we're able to start whenever you are.
Thank you. I'm realizing too that under your leadership, there are things that have expanded, and with our pilot collaboration that we approved that will were not reflected necessarily in the terms, but that will be also important to be able to have some of that support on. Great. Yes, Deputy Betts.
Sorry, Chair, I just wanted to know whether or not, and I'm just quickly rereading the terms of reference, depending on the nature of what the committee will look at or necessarily be exposed to here with regard to the work of London Police Service, I'm wondering if there isn't something we should put in here around, into the confidentiality section around, I don't want to say necessarily background information or background checks for those who will participate on the committee, but they may be, depending on where the work takes them, it may take them into information about LPS that would typically require such vetting. I don't know if you foresee that as an avenue that the work will take us down. And if it's just a case of putting it in there as it may be required, if we get to that stage of things, so that everybody goes into this volunteer participation with that full understanding.
So thank you for the comment. I think it's a really important one. The issue of the way that we worded the confidentiality section did come up in the public feedback, where there was some concern and hesitation from the public about things being too confidential and not transparent. So I think that in the revisions, we did go through getting some legal perspectives and making sure that everything that's okay with the way that it's written, and also with a lens towards as much transparency as possible. The question about background checks is one that I did not think of. So I think it's an important one. We should probably clarify whether or not that's something that we want, excuse me, a legal perspective on. We also have to be careful to not create anything which would potentially exclude participants. As is, the terms do not require it, but it perhaps, to your point, would be important in our call out communication that we can put together once these are approved, to note that that may be something potentially needed depending on the work. Also with the caveat that these are advisory to the board and therefore not involved or nor directly involved in any operational matters, nor is there any legislative reporting necessarily that these committees would be subject to. Mayor Holder, did you have your hand there?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Chair, when you made the comment about, I'll paraphrase slightly, is that I got the impression you were considering that somehow a background check could be limiting to individuals who would utilize for this, that we would include in this process. Could you just expand on that a little bit, or did I misread that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I think that, of course, we would want to be going through the due diligence that's commensurate with the role of the board, and walking the line between an advisory group versus something that's more involved with operations. We know that the work of the board can have sensitive matters that are operational where we have to treat them with a higher degree of sensitivity. And of course, not all of the committee members who are advisory would be taking that oath and would not be privy to those operational matters. And that's understood. When I stated the piece about background checks, it was just with the caveat that we want to make sure that we're inclusive and encourage people who may not otherwise be interested in engaging with us as a board to be invited to engage with a minimal amount of barriers to that engagement. And with recognition that sometimes there may be individuals from some communities who perceive that they cannot, or that there may be some restrictions on their participation. So I think my comment to elaborate more and to your question would be that when we put the request out for citizen members, that we put a open, invitational, and transparent request out that invites as many people to participate as possible. Any other questions or comments on the way that they're written? If not, is there comfort with the motion that would say we recommend to approve the terms pending benchmark compensation amounts for citizen members to the board, and support sending call out or advertisement for citizen members?
Comfortable to move that, Chair.
Thanks, Mayor Holder. Seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Great. Thank you so much. So we'll move that forward to the full board in the public session with the additional information we've talked about. And we'll flag the question around background checks and make sure that we do that appropriately. Thank you, Deputy Chief, for that. All right. So with no other items and 3 minutes till 10:30, I'll get a motion to adjourn. All right. Moved by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by the Mayor. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you all on Thursday, hopefully. And please, for those of you joining, if there's any questions, comments, any feedback as well, please don't hesitate to contact us or contact me personally. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Bye.